What am I going to do? What am I going to do? What am I going to do? Wendy panicked as she paced around her room. It hadn't been 3 hours since the bite, and she'd already smarted off to her dad, compared her brother's stench to a skunk dunked in vinegar, and a very poorly timed phone call from Robbie might have all but guaranteed the boy may never speak to her again. Well, at least that was one potential positive out of all this mess. Then Tambry stopped by, wanting to know what was going on, and that explanation ended abruptly when Wendy started cursing Tambry over her refusal to look up from her phone while she was trying to discuss something this serious. Tambry wisely said goodbye, and that she'd talk to Wendy again after her 24 hours of chronic truth-telling was up. Wendy had all but decided to wall herself up in her room until then, but that all changed with a knock on her bedroom door. The face grinning back at her when she opened that door was the absolute last one she wanted to see. "Oh, hell no, Mabel! Go home now," she slammed the door in the sweater lover's face. Naturally, this was easily countered by Mabel just opening up the door and letting herself inside. "Come on, Wendy. If you really wanted me gone, you would have locked the door, so I think there may be a tiny little piece of you that's glad I showed up. Maybe a little. But mostly I just feel like your presence here is gonna cause me nothing but more grief." "I'm getting that vibe a lot lately," Mabel sighed, as she invited herself to take a seat on Wendy's bed. "A little birdie told me that my matchmaking efforts might not be so much for the benefit of the lovebirds I'm trying to fix up as it is to validate myself as some kind of world-class matchmaker. This little birdie sounds pretty smart. Look, I know you mean well, but don't worry, I'm not here trying to play Cupid just to make myself feel good. I'm here because I see the chance for two people I love to be happy, and they both seem too stupid to take advantage of it." "Mabel, I know what you're trying to get at here," Wendy rambled, sounding nervous. "I told you I'm not ready for that. And I'm not here to force you. Just to give you some honest, not self-interested advice, and you can choose to do with it what you please. Now, I do intend on extracting some information from you, but I promise I'll never tell anybody not in this room. I just want to make sure I'm not completely wasting my time or anybody else's. Since I know you can't lie to me right now." "Mabel, this isn't fair. You have me in a very vulnerable and uncomfortable position right now, and I don't like it. You're my friend, but I can't help but think less of you because of this. That hurts, Wendy, but it'll be worth it if this all works out in the end. 3 questions, that's all I want. I'll have all the information I need, and I promise no more taking advantage of the situation after that. I don't believe you, but fine. I'll give you 3, but then I expect you leave immediately after. That's fair. Okay, first question. Why the heck did you start dating Robbie Valentino?" Wendy was surprised she'd waste a question on Robbie, but hey, that was her loss. "He asked me out, and I decided to give him a chance. I don't judge a book by its cover, I like to read a few chapters first. I wanted to see if there was a decent person behind all that phony angst. Didn't like the direction the story was taking, so I lost interest. I know I sort of asked this question before, but bear with me. Did me and my brother moving to town have anything to do with you breaking up with Robbie? Yes, and no. I originally agreed to be Robbie's girlfriend in part because Dipper came to town. Robbie was kind of shield, so I wouldn't have to face my feelings for Dipper right away. I had a boyfriend, you know? Wouldn't have to worry about anything potentially friendship ruining happening between us if I already had a boyfriend, right? Eventually, I realized I was using Robbie, and that made me no better than some of the guys I've dated in the past, so I decided that the fair thing to do was break it off with him. So yeah, both. That clears a lot of things up, actually. Okay, last question. Why are you so stubborn when it comes to admitting you're in love with my brother?" And there it was. The anvil dropped on the top of her head, the haymaker near the end of round 5. Wendy had been fully accepting it and was somehow still caught completely off guard when it came. Since she couldn't freaking lie, she didn't have her stock denial to fall back on either. Because Wendy was nearly in tears as she finally spit it out. Dipper's not just another guy, all right. If things don't work out with him, I can't just walk away and forget about him like he never existed, like I've done with all my other exes. Dipper's too important to me. It would hurt way too much. I don't want to lose my best friend, and I don't want to have my heart broken, okay? Oh, Wendy! Mabel wailed happily, wrapping the redhead in a hug. You are a girl after all. Would you cut it out, Mabel? Wendy fussed, as she tried to shake free from Mabel's surprisingly strong grip, while hugging at least. This is degrading. I understand now. This must be what it's like to watch your child walk for the first time, Mabel sniffed, as she wiped a tear from her eye. Seriously though, Wendy. I'm not trying to pressure you into anything, just giving you my opinion. If you want to stay just friends with Dipper, that's fine, but sometimes you've got to be good friends first before you become lovers, and sometimes best friends turn out to be the best couples. There's got to be a good reason you were so close to begin with, right? I'm not saying any of this because I'm biased, because Dipper's my brother. Trust me, I'm the first person to point out all his faults. He's a mega dork that's going to bore you to tears wanting to talk about all his nerd stuff. He has horrible taste in music, and if you ever do get with him, you're going to have to be patient at first until he gets comfortable, because those first couple of months he's going to be all paranoid and afraid you're going to break up with him every time you have a disagreement or misunderstanding. Mabel paused briefly and smiled after drawing a small chuckle from the redhead. He needs some work for sure. But you're not going to find anyone more loyal, kind, or devoted to you than my brother Wendy. Trust me, all the grief I've given him over the years, and he hasn't turned his back on me yet. I appreciate what you're trying to do, Mabel, Wendy sniffed, tearing up slightly. Only problem is, you're not telling me nothing I don't already know. What's holding you back then? She asked, fully aware that she was still slyly taking advantage of Wendy's inability to lie. Because I'm not what he thinks I am. He puts me on a pedestal like I'm this amazing, spectacular person, and I'm just not. I suck at school, I'm lazy, I'm stressed out like all the time, my family life at home by itself is enough to drive me half insane, and all my relationship baggage has given me some not insignificant trust issues. My only actual impressive skill is my ability to act like I'm all chill all the time, and none of this crap actually bothers me. What's Dipper going to think of me when he realizes I'm not this perfect goddess he made me out to be when he was 12? How's his opinion of me going to change when that illusion gets shattered all to hell? Mabel looked Wendy dead in the eyes and replied just as she would have if she had been injected with the truth toxin herself. Knowing Dipper. It wouldn't change one single bit. Wendy glared at Mabel as if she were insane. Mabel grinned from ear to ear before jumping off the bed. Welp, I said what I came here to say. All I can do now is root from the sidelines and give you the same advice I gave to Dip. You both have a golden opportunity here, Wendy. Neither one of you can lie right now, which means any questions you might have for each other, you can ask and know the other person is telling you the absolute truth. Any doubts you still have about Dipper, you can clear up just like that. That's right. He can't lie to me. Wendy whispered to herself as if she were somehow just realizing this for the first time. Mabel's smile somehow got wider. Just like I thought. You were so worried about saying something to out yourself, you completely forgot to consider Dipper can't keep any secrets from you either. Wendy didn't respond, apparently deep in thought. Mabel sensed that this was the perfect moment to leave. The seed hadn't just been planted, it was already sprouting leaves. No, she wouldn't be surprised at all if Wendy didn't even notice her walk out the door. In truth, she hadn't. Wendy was too busy trying to win the internal argument she was having with herself. Dipper couldn't lie to her. Theoretically, she could get the answers she wanted out of him, and then bail before saying anything she might regret if his answers didn't go the way she hoped they would. Yeah, this just might be stupid enough to work. Wendy stared at her phone for a good minute before howling out in frustration. I can't do this anymore. I'm putting an end to it tonight. Much like Wendy, Dipper had locked himself away in his room, isolating himself from the outside world. He was more than a little surprised to receive a sudden text from Wendy. "Wendy, meet me at the bunker in an hour." Dipper's brow rose involuntarily. Wendy wanted to meet him in their condition? At the bunker of all places. He knew Mabel had left the house a while ago, and Dipper had a feeling she was sneaking off to visit Wendy. He was starting to get suspicious that maybe Mabel had somehow gotten a hold of Wendy's phone when another text came in that almost made him sweat. "Wendy, 1 hour. This isn't a request, Dipper." Oh, shit. The bunker was the last place Dipper Pines thought he'd be going that night. Hell, he hadn't expected to be there earlier that afternoon either, let alone did he expect to get bitten by an alien insect that temporarily rendered him incapable of lying. Oh, did he ever wish he knew why Wendy insisted he meet her all the way out here, especially with sunset sneaking up on them soon? He'd even sent her a couple of texts requesting more details, which she read but didn't bother to respond to. His nerves continued to heighten as he approached his destination. Maybe it was just his paranoia talking, but he was hard-pressed coming up with any potential positive outcomes that could come out of meeting Wendy out here in their condition. When Dipper arrived in the small clearing adjacent to the bunker, he wasn't surprised at all to find Wendy already there waiting on him. Sitting on a familiar log where they once had a conversation that would shape the nature of their relationship for the next 3 years. She didn't bother to look up at him even as he stood next to the log looking down on her. She had left plenty of room, hinting to him that she wanted him to take a seat next to her, so he obliged. He got an odd sense of comfort when he recognized that Wendy looked just as nervous and confused as he did. "Is waiting on you to show up something I just need to get used to?" Wendy said suddenly, breaking the ice. "Probably. I don't know this wilderness as well as you do. I didn't grow up here." Dipper paused, and after a dozen or so seconds of agonizing silence, he continued. "This probably isn't a good idea, is it?" "Depends. You have something to tell me that I'm not going to like?" "I don't know, that's the problem." More silence followed. Wendy lowered her head and asked, with seemingly genuine concern, "How are you feeling?" "Terrified." "You too, I assume?" "Probably more than I've ever been in my life." "Why are we here then?" he asked as he finally turned his head to face her. "Because Mabel is right," she said as her gaze met his. "We've been given a unique opportunity and I want to take advantage of it. If either of us has anything we want to get off our chest, now's the time to do it. No seconding guessing, no BS, no hiding behind walls. Just the truth." "Okay, I guess we're doing this whether I like it or not." Dipper winced. He would have stopped at this if not for that stupid toxin. "You go first. This was your idea, so obviously you think I'm hiding something that you want to know." "I do, but I'm not ready to ask that one just yet. Let's start with something simple. Pacifica." Dipper blushed instantly, and Wendy was already getting a horrible feeling about how this was going to go. "Do you think she's pretty?" "Yeah, she's gorgeous. Especially when she doesn't overdo it on the makeup. Nice body, pretty face. Honestly, she's gotten a lot more attractive since her personality did a 180. It was so rotten when I first met her that I didn't find her attractive at all." "Do you like her?" "Yeah, I like her. She's changed a lot over the years, Wendy, and she's been working hard to improve her family's reputation. Next to you and Mabel, she's probably my closest friend." "Not like that, stupid." "Do you like her? As in have the hots for her, like she obviously does you?" Despite being taken aback by Wendy's angry tone, he maintained a level head as he answered simply, "No. I don't have those kind of feelings for Pacifica, Wendy. Never have." Dipper could actually feel Wendy's breath as she exhaled in relief. "Deep down I knew that, but it still feels good to hear you actually say it." Dipper just couldn't believe the impression Wendy was giving him could possibly be true. "Wendy. My relationship with Pacifica. It doesn't make you feel insecure, does it?" "Of course she makes me feel insecure. She's a frickin' blonde Barbie doll with money flying out the wazoo. I'm a freakishly tall ginger tomboy. Who do you think is gonna win all the beauty and popularity contests if you put us side by side? What are you talking about? Pacifica's attractive and all, but she can't hold a candle to you. Not to mention that you've always been awesome towards me since the day we met, and you sure as heck didn't have to be. No one else ever was. But you're biased, Dipper. Most guys don't look at me that way. Then screw them, they're idiots. You're the most amazing person I've ever met. Dipper shut up right there and promptly turned blood red at what he said. Wendy wasn't quite as bright, but her fair skin was pretty close to matching his. While Dipper wanted to smack himself upside the head in embarrassment, Wendy managed to smile through hers. Well, as long as you think so, that's good enough for me. Now Dipper was blushing for a completely different reason. It was time to switch the subject before he passed out from too much blood rushing to his face. I never took you for someone who really cared how you stacked up to other girls in the looks, popularity, or money departments. You've always seemed so confident and comfortable with who you are. It's one of the things I've always admired most about you. Hey, I like myself just fine, thank you. I'm perfectly comfortable in my own skin, and normally I wouldn't give two hoots about comparing myself to other girls. Especially over the little Northwest princess. I only really cared that one time because we happened to like the same guy, so. It was the only time I've ever seriously sized myself up against another girl. Wendy was both thankful and somehow also annoyed that Dipper didn't appear to pick up on who the guy was in this case, painfully obvious as it was. Is that part of the reason why you got so upset with me at the beach for spending so much time with Pacifica? That, and the way you were humping her with your eyes the entire afternoon. And the way she was clearly flaunting her body in front of you in order to get that reaction. Let's not forget that day was originally just supposed to be for me and you, since Mabel set it up for us to be alone. Oh no, you can't take the high ground on this one, Wendy. You brought your boyfriend with you, so you can't get mad at me for spending time with another girl at the beach while you were preoccupied. Don't you think I know that? That's one of the reasons I got so mad. Because I knew I had no right to be upset over the two of you hanging out together, but it bothered me anyway. Ugh, I swear, ever since you moved here everything's gotten all confusing and weird. Do you regret that I moved here? His question was somber but honest, so Wendy couldn't bring herself to get mad at him for asking it. No! It's what I've wanted since the summer we first met. Well, at least for you to be around more often. I just wish things would settle down so I can finally enjoy it. Wendy paused briefly, appearing slightly concerned. Do you regret that your family moved up here? Sometimes. But only when things are weird between us. The only reason I'd ever truly regret moving here was if our friendship gets ruined because of it. I've been stressing over the exact same thing. Another round of silence followed, though this time it was a bit less awkward. Both were feeling slightly more comfortable the more they spoke. Wendy desperately wanted to ask the central question on her mind, but it just didn't feel like the right time yet. She needed more information first before she risked going down in flames. Dipper would be the one to speak next, however. Do you mind if I ask you a question? About your past boyfriends? Kind of, but go ahead. As long as it's nothing too personal. Well, it's just. Let me start off by saying I don't believe a single word of what I've heard, but since you've dated so many different guys, I've heard some people say some not so flattering things about you. I'm well aware of those rumors, and quite frankly, I don't really care what stupid people think. I am glad to hear you ain't buying into it though. Of course not. I know you better than that. I was just wondering why you've had so many relationships that didn't work out. I'm 16 and never had one girlfriend, let alone 10 or 12. Okay, first off, I've only had like 3 actual boyfriends. Well, 4, I guess I technically have to count Robbie. There's a difference between dating and actually going with a guy despite what some people think. As for why they didn't work, there's no one simple answer for that. A couple of those guys I actually really did like, but you already know how those ended. It's why I have issues now with guys I want to be able to trust lying to me. As for the rest, well, they were cute, I gave them a chance, but it turned out that they just weren't what I was looking for. What were you looking for? Dipper asked for reasons he didn't fully grasp. You. The answer was so blunt and direct that it caught both of them by surprise. Wendy immediately began to panic. Wait, what? Not you specifically, she stammered, gesturing with her arms erratically. Someone like you. Who's kind to me the way you are. And looks at me the way you do. That didn't live hundreds of miles away, and without all the added pressure of being friends. I get it. A guy like me, just not me. Dipper laughed lightly, in an attempt not to sound bitter. I'm a bit offended, but I understand. No, you don't. Dipper gave Wendy a hard look, but she refused to look up and meet his gaze. Instead, she asked, How many girls have you kissed, Dipper? I don't know exactly. 3, maybe 4. Wait, there's also Grandma. No, idiot. Girls you're not related to. Oh. In that case, just you that one time. Bullshit. No, it's true. Dipper insisted, as Wendy turned her head away from him slightly. You know I can't lie right now, Wendy. Well, something isn't right. You've been practicing somewhere because nobody's that good of a kisser on their first try. No, I haven't kissed anybody else, ISW. Wait. You could almost see Dipper's brain turn to mush inside his skull. You mean you actually liked it when we kissed? Duh, of course I liked it. God, Dipper, I know you're dense about girls, but this is ridiculous. You seriously couldn't tell I was into it? It was like my entire body turned to mush and was set on fire at the same time. It's all I've been able to think about since, well, that, and doing it again. Apparently, though, it didn't mean anything to you, so for the last month I've been doing everything I can to wipe it from my mind, but you've seen how well that's worked. Wait, hold on a second. Why in the world would you think that kiss meant nothing to me? Because you told me it didn't. She spat angrily. You told me not to worry about it, because it didn't mean anything. We just forced a kiss because we were trying to break a spell, right? I only said that because I thought that's what you wanted to hear. I didn't want you to think I was expecting something more to come of it because you were forced to kiss me. Dipper paused, as a thought occurred to him. Is that why you've been so weird with me lately? Because I tried to downplay that kiss? Well, it hurt, Dipper. It meant so much to me, and to have you immediately brush it off like it meant nothing. So I did what I always do when I want certain feelings to go away, I distanced myself from the situation. It's hard to be alone with someone when your body is starting to have thoughts and feelings that are sneaking past PG-13 levels. But I don't understand how you could possibly think that kiss meant nothing to me. I've been in love with you since I was 12, I'd been waiting for that moment nearly a fourth of my life. Dipper couldn't understand why Wendy wasn't responding to him, or why she was staring at him with this shocked, flushed look on her face. That's when it hit him. The realization of what he'd just said. Groaning with frustration, he removed the hat from his head and tossed it to the ground. He sat back down on the log, unsure at what point he'd actually stood up, and buried his face in his hands. I knew this was a terrible idea. This is exactly what I was afraid of happening, and now I've ruined everything. A still stunned Wendy slowly sat back down next to him, with her mind racing, processing what she'd just learned. She looked down at the log they were seated on. The irony, of course, was not lost on her. It's the entire reason she chose the bunker as their meeting place. Dipper. Do you remember what happened the last time we sat on this log together? Dipper wasn't quite sure what Wendy was referring to at first, until he took a good look at where he was sitting. He'd almost forgotten it was the exact same log. Of course. It's where you told me you weren't interested in me that way after I confessed. It's also where we both declared we'd always be friends, so you could say this mossy old tree holds both good and bad memories for me. Why bring that up though? Because the more time that goes by, the more I regret turning you down that day. You do? Does that mean you didn't mean it when you? No, I meant it. Wendy interrupted, having no need for him to finish to recognize what he was going to ask. I didn't have feelings for you like that, and I just wanted to be friends. Back then anyway. But that means you feel different now? He asked, perhaps too hopefully. When did that change? Around the time you came back to town the next summer. And showed up a little bit taller. A little bit cuter. Mostly though, we got to spend more time together and really got to know each other. By the time I realized what was happening, the summer was over, and it was time for you to go home again. I decided to keep my feelings to myself, and hope my little crush would fade over the next 9 months. It didn't. You finally got a cell phone, and we started talking or texting almost every night, and by the time you got back to town last year, I knew I was in trouble, but by then I was so concerned with ruining our friendship that I just decided to ignore my feelings altogether. It was hard enough to lose my best friend after every summer. It was hard to imagine how it would feel if, you know, I'm your best friend? Really? Of course. The absolute best dude. Dipper couldn't believe what he was hearing. He also couldn't believe how close Wendy was to him. A few inches to her right, and she'd almost be in his lap. The proximity both excited and frightened him. Wendy appeared to notice his discomfort, but instead of easing up on him like he expected, she inched closer to a point that her shoulder was pressed against his. Wendy. What's happening here? Something wonderful. Maybe nothing at all. What do you want to happen? I want to see if that first kiss was just a fluke or if I actually know what I'm doing. What are you waiting for then? He didn't. Dipper took complete advantage of their proximity and pressed his lips to hers, putting all the love, frustration, and longing he could muster into the kiss. Wendy reacted as if she'd been lost in the desert for days and just discovered water. She wrapped her arms around him and attacked his lips with every bit the intensity that he had. There was no telling how long they were lip-locked before they finally pulled apart, breathing heavily as they caught each other's gaze, finally able to recognize the love that had been hiding inside those eyes for years. I love you, Wendy, Dipper said. No hesitation, and absolutely no regret. Wendy teared up as she smiled broadly. I love you too, you stupid, adorable little dork. This time, Wendy pulled Dipper's face to hers, and they picked up right where they left off. There was no reason to hold back anymore, nothing to hide as they let everything go. Nothing lurid happened, mind you, the most scandalous event occurring when Wendy briefly put her hand up Dipper's shirt to caress his bare back. They kissed until lips went raw and oxygen was desperately needed, but even as they parted, Wendy refused Dipper any personal space, her face so close to his, their noses nearly touched. With half-lidded eyes and almost predatory tone, she said huskily, "We're gonna be doing that a lot, you know? And you're not going to hear me complain," Dipper panted, tasting of Wendy's lips a couple more times before reluctantly insisting on a little room to breathe. We should probably settle ourselves down a little though. So things don't go too far. I don't care if we go too far. The bluntness of her tone alone was enough to make Dipper blush. He had to be insistent though. Sure, you don't care right now, but you might tomorrow. You know, when hormones are going all bonkers. Wendy's cheeks pinkened slightly, having calmed down enough to realize he was correct. You're right. When we're not reacting like horny teenagers. Exactly. Dipper kissed Wendy on the cheek, and she responded by taking Dipper by the hand and leaning her head against his shoulder. The orange glow of a bright full moon washed over them, as if it were watching over them. So, is this what you were expecting to happen when you ordered me out here? I was just hoping for some kind of closure. Any kind. I got so much more than I ever dared to hope for. She tilted her eyes upward to look at him, smiling coyly. I do need to set one ground rule right now, though. I know a certain blonde heiress that's gonna have to learn fast to keep her hands to herself and watch what she flaunts in front of my new boyfriend. Boyfriend? Dipper croaked, sounding shocked. He laughed nervously and asked. I thought you said you had to date a guy for a while before you considered him your boyfriend. You're the exception to a lot of things, Dipper pines. You're the only guy I've ever really loved. Almost without realizing it, they were kissing again, though this time it was much more subdued. It's a shame about Pacifica though, Dipper smirked as their lips parted, feeling unusually bold. I was really hoping I could make her my mistress or something. Not funny, Dipper. Wendy barked, elbowing him lightly in the side. She tried to look angry, but just couldn't help but smirk. Sorry, it was just a joke. Dipper paused, his eyes widening in realization at what had just happened. I just told a joke. Yeah, a really bad one. Dipper ignored the jab and asked Wendy excitedly. Quick, ask me what color your hair is. What? Why? Wendy asked, very confused. Just trust me, okay, Dipper assured her with a smile. Ask me what color your hair is. Sure thing, Dip. Geesh, got a weird out on me already, huh? Okay, what color is my hair? Purple. Wendy's brow creased in confusion before she suddenly realized what Dipper was getting at. Holy crap, you just told a lie. I know. Now you try. Okay. I didn't just spend the last hour making out with my best friend on top of his uncle's weird lab. Wow, dude, I thought the nothing but the truth thing was supposed to last 24 hours. That's what Grunkle Ford said. It barely lasted a few hours, though. Maybe he overestimated how long the effect lasts, or maybe it was something we did. Dude, do we break a curse every time we kiss or something, 'cause that's some pretty epic shit. You know what, I like that theory. Let's just run with that. Dipper did break down and call his grunkle to share this new piece of information. Ford was astonished, but did admit his findings were based off of one case where the toxin had infected a human, and the 24 estimate was purely speculation based off when he noticed the man could spread falsehoods again. Dipper wished his grunkle goodbye but frowned when he noticed the time on his phone. It's after 9 already. We probably should be calling it a night soon. Boo! I don't want to. Wendy whined as she buried her face in his shoulder. Me either, but hey. We've got tomorrow, and every other day now. And we don't have to worry about me leaving for California after a couple of months. Yeah. I guess I still do have a hard time processing that you actually live here now. You know it's gonna be impossible for me to sleep tonight, and it's all your fault. My sincerest preemptive apologies, Dipper smiled down at her. She smiled back but realized something wasn't quite right. She quickly located his pine tree trucker's hat and placed it back on his head. Walk you home? Actually, I think I'd rather walk you home. A fiendish smile crossed Wendy Corduroy's lips. I might eventually owe your sister one for helping convince me to have this talk with you tonight, but before that happens, I still owe her one for causing us all so much grief button into our love lives in the first place. Oh. What did you have in mind? He asked with interest. Walk with me, Dipper, and soak in my wisdom as a prankster mastermind goes to work. Mabel was starting to get worried. It was nearly 10 o'clock and still no sign of her brother. If whatever they were talking about was taking this long, that had to be a good sign, right? She tried her best to cover for Dip with their mom and dad, but if he took too much longer, their parents were going to get suspicious. Finally, though, through the living room window, she caught a glimpse of Dipper and Wendy was with him? Excitedly, Mabel rushed outside to greet them. Why, hello there, you two. Since you both arrived together, I take it things went well? Mabel's mood dipped a bit when she saw their neutral expressions. You guys don't exactly look happy. We're fine, Mabel, Dipper said in a flat tone that did not reassure his sister. Well, we did what you wanted. We took advantage of our inability to lie and had that talk with each other. So, how did it go? Wendy and Dipper looked at one another somberly. Dipper looked back at his sister and gave her the news. Well, after getting some things off our chests that had been brewing for a while, we decided we can't just stay friends anymore. What? No! You can't be serious. Afraid so, Mabel, Wendy confirmed. Too much has happened over the past few weeks. Too much has changed, and we just can't ignore it anymore. But you guys just can't. Mabel threw herself in between them, grabbing them both by the hand. You guys can't end a friendship like yours just like that. If you do, I'll be like the worst sister in the world for steering you guys towards meeting each other tonight. You're not the worst sister in the world, Mabel. You did the right thing forcing us to talk things out. Yeah, dude, we're both perfectly fine with the way things turned out. We couldn't keep going on with things like they were anyway. But, really? Mabel asked misty-eyed. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. It was like watching your favorite ship hit a reef and sink. Look, I better get going. Nate is supposed to pick me up in a few and give me a ride home. All right. Have a safe trip home, Wendy. Oh, and Dipper, Wendy said before she turned to leave. A smirk formed over her face, causing Dipper to develop one of his own. She walked up to him and gave him a kiss full on the lips, making sure to put on a good show for Mabel, who was watching with her jaw hanging halfway to the ground. See ya in the morning. Can't wait, Dipper mouthed, with a cute little smile, the combination of which started to make Wendy imagine doing things to him that were inappropriate for family viewing. She really did leave this time, though Dipper continued to watch her until she was out of sight, which might not have taken so long if Wendy didn't stop to look back every few feet. Dipper finally turned to his sister, who was still staring at him in absolute shock and disbelief. What? All we said was that we couldn't just be friends anymore. What exactly do you hear? Mabel continued to look dumbstruck for another second before squealing with delight and lassoing her brother around his neck. Oh my God! You did it! You guys actually did it! Ouch, oh! Mabel, you're strangling me? Tell me more, tell me more. Mabel pleaded as her brother escaped her clutches. So, your little rendezvous did go well, I take it? Well, we said we loved each other and made out for almost an hour so. Yeah, pretty damn good. Oh, scandalous. I love it. Wait, seeing as you guys wouldn't have come together without my coaching, that would make me the best sister in the world, wouldn't it? You're pretty great, I guess, Dipper smiled, and barely resisted patting his sister on the head. Something he knew she hated. We need to celebrate. Mabel grabbed Dipper by the hand and tried to drag him towards the door. This is the perfect occasion for Mabel cakes. No, Mabel. Please, not Mabel cakes. Let's just call it even, please. There was going to be no stopping his sister, though. Her rampage would go on for quite a while. Wendy was having trouble sleeping that night. She knew she would, and she didn't mind. The taste of his lips still lingered on hers, his scent still clung to her clothes from their embrace, the same outfit she refused to change for that very reason. Mostly though her mind raced, replaying every moment she shared with Dipper that evening, and previewing many that were still to come. If there was a good reason to lose sleep at night, this was definitely it. In that moment, her life was as close to perfect as it had ever been. Around midnight, she received an unexpected text from Tambry. Awfully late to be on the phone even for her. She should have expected what she read. Tambry, so. Heard you and Dipper had a little get-together this evening. Damn it, Mabel. Wendy huffed, no doubt in her mind who the culprit was. Couldn't you have at least waited until morning? Maybe me and Dip wanted to tell people ourselves. Tambry, about damn time. Congratulations, one. Wendy had to smile at that. There was just no possible way for her to stay angry right now. She spent the next few minutes chatting with her oldest friend about her magical night. Back at the Pines house, Dipper was in his bed staring at the ceiling, a smile on his face that had rarely left it that evening. Even dealing with Hurricane Mabel and her aftermath seemed to put him in an even better mood. That night had been a dream come true. Well worth the 4 long years of patient commitment, especially considering such a spectacular payoff was never a guarantee. Dipper received another surprise that night when his phone rang a little after midnight. Recognizing Wendy's ringtone, he answered almost immediately. Hey Wendy, everything okay? It is now. Damn, that girl knew how to make him blush. He grinned right through it. Can't sleep either, huh? Nope, and it's all your fault. You really did a number on me tonight, Pines. Well, after 4 years of doing one on me, I kind of owed you one. Maybe even a couple more. Definitely looking forward to that, Wendy chuckled evilly. I see your sister couldn't wait to spread the word around. I've already had Tambry texting me about it. Yeah, sorry about her. I wouldn't have thought it possible before tonight, but I think she might be more excited for us than I am. Well, I did always have a feeling we were a bit of a project for her. At least now she can find 2 other poor slobs to harass. I'm sure she's already scheduling interviews. They both laughed and fell silent for a few brief moments. So, any particular reason you called, or did you just miss me already? Little bit of both. Knew neither one of us was probably going to sleep well tonight. Might as well not sleep together, right? As long as it's with you, I'm up for just about anything. Dipper could almost hear her grin on the other end of the line. Guess I need to get used to hearing those cheesy lines from you, huh? Probably. You gonna have a problem with that? You know what, I don't think I am. The love-struck new couple talked well into the night until finally falling asleep to the sound of the other's voice, just to meet each other again as they dreamed.